Okay. Are members quite happy just to start until we get to the first productive item for discussion? We'll pause there and see where we are with Diane. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Anybody think differently? Okay. In Russell's absence, it's been suggested that I chair this morning's meeting. Rather than say, is everybody okay with that? Is there anybody no okay with that? Might be an avalanche coming in. No, okay. That seems to be agreed. The protocol for today's meetings been issued, as is the guidance, and all of that can be refined as we're going on. If after the meeting people think we need to change something, it would be helpful to get feedback for each of the groups, just to sort of see where we are. The one area I'm not sure whether people will be dead happy with is the officers aren't speaking to reports at all. But I think what we'll suggest today is that we will take it like that today, and we'll get feedback as to how members feel after that. Is everybody okay with that, or anybody no okay with that? Okay. Right. I have two apologies. I have Russell Imrie and Kieran Munro. Russell's doing quite well, apart from his medications knocking him quite loopy and sleepy. So goodness knows when he'll come back. I was unsure whether he would be well enough to come in this morning. Is there any other apologies? Okay, thank you. Order of business as per the paper. Declarations of interest can be made now or at any other time. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay. And the minutes of the meeting of the 25th of February, for anybody who can remember them. Peter?
Derek, sorry, Peter.
Yeah, my hand up, a declaration of interest. The paper that involves Wellington Farm that's owned by a former Conservative candidate, and I can't play any part in that discussion.
Okay, thank you. Debbie?
Yeah, 5.5 Windsor Square. I have been at many community council meetings where this has been discussed. I have attended a meeting that the builders have put on. However, although I've heard people from both sides of the argument, I have not made any statements regarding my thoughts on it, and I'm happy that I can be completely impartial with this.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Okay, I can't see any other hands. Apologies for that. The next application is 5.1, but I'm just wanting to pause there to see where we are with Debbie. Marco, do we have any update yet?
Sorry, I've just this second received a message from Lewis, still struggling. I will ask her to phone into the meeting, Derek, I think, if that's suitable for everyone.
Unless anybody objects to that, we'll go ahead with that. Okay, I'll pause until you get the phone call, Marco.
Okay, thank you, Derek.
So you can't be heard? Are you working?
Peter, yourself on mute.
Yeah, so that's just Councillor Hardy saying his link doesn't work either for video or audio, and he's going to absent himself for the whole meeting.
Okay.
I think he also had an interest on Windsor Square Pennycook to declare, just for the record.
Okay.
while we're waiting, maybe Marco could give some guidance. I've declared an interest, so I'll have to leave the meeting. Do I actually leave the meeting fully, or is there some way of going to the waiting room that leaves the settings more intact?
I'll let Mike and Verona speak to the protocol of it, but from a practical point of view, we can't. It just ejects you to the lobby, I'm afraid, Peter, because you're part of this organisation. You automatically get let in. It's a feature of the Microsoft system.
Basically, I closed down my session, and then I have to re-enter at some point.
From memory from last week, Chair, sorry to jump in quickly. Yes, if Peter closes down, then you can invite him back in as chair once the meeting's finished through the show participants button, or perhaps you want to delegate that to the clerk.
Yeah, we'll delegate it to you or the clerk.
Thank you.
Verona or Mike, would you mind? I haven't received anything back from Lewis after I sent the message. Could you potentially try and dial out to Diane's phone using the participant menu?
Yeah, I can do, Marco.
Derek, is it not possible to just crack on with the meeting and Diane doesn't take part in the first part of the agenda?
Yeah, I'm happy to move on, but I'm quite keen.
Sorry, but the person you've called isn't available at the moment. Why not leave a message so they can get back to you? Just speak after the tone. When you've finished your message, just hang up. Or to hear more options, press 1.
Mike, whoever phoned Diane, could you please hang it up?
When you've finished your message, just hang up. Or to hear more options, press 1.
I've been recorded twice now.
That's fine. I've ejected her, but she must be either on the phone to Lewis or she's trying to dial in herself.
Okay. Right, guys, Colin's suggestion, we'll crack on unless anybody has any objection to that. Okay, we'll now move on to the pre-application consultations, and just to remind members that you are free to give a view on this as dictated by the Standards Commission, and this is just to help guide the developers and the planners. 5.1 is a proposed residential development with the associated infrastructure at land at Newton Farm, Wellington Farm, Old Craig Hall Road, Miller Hill, Dalkeith. Is there any members wish to? Stephen? Stephen
Thank
Curran.
you, Chair. Yep, thanks, Chair. I think it's just worth highlighting a couple of points within the content of the report. I note this is a safeguarded site, and according to our latest housing land audit, we do have adequate land supply. There's also questions around the education solution, and I note at 3.9 there's a presumption against residential development. So I suppose my question for planners is that, considering these points and the further points within the report, is this pre-application premature?
Chair, if I can just come in and answer that. That's just the timing of the pre-application submission is up to the applicants. They must probably submit it because they want to just sound out what the council's view are in terms of the proposal. Yeah, the report sets out a position that at an officer level, we would consider this premature because the site's not actually allocated yet. It's identified as being safeguarded, but it's not allocated, and we don't at this moment require the housing numbers, but elected members and may take a different position, and the council's position may change with time. Some applicants will apply for a pre-application inquiry months, if not years, in advance of actually submitting a planning application. So I think it's very early stages at the moment, but that's a judgment to be made.
That's fine, Chair. Thanks.
Is there any other points? John Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just conscious of the economic situation that we're finding ourselves in now and looking ahead in the future. And it's often been said that the construction industry is a good barometer for the rest of the economy. I'm wondering, those economic factors, how could we weigh those up in considering an application like this in light of other planning policies?
It'd be my understanding, but Peter will correct me if I'm wrong, that it isn't a consideration that's given to planning applications. Peter?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, the starting point is a correct one insofar as that the construction industry is an integral part of Midlothian's local economy as well as the national economy, and it is key. I suppose I would almost say and remind members that there's most probably it's a double-edged sword. This, you may think that there's an economic benefit to a site coming forward which hasn't been allocated, but there's a risk here that if you promote one site that's not allocated, is it to the detriment of another site? And I say that with, regardless of what the economy is doing, there's only so many sites that house builders will open up at any one time, because that's how much the market would take. So by opening up one site doesn't mean to say you're adding to the economic activity. You may be just pulling it away from somewhere else. But in terms of the fundamental question about economics and jobs, they can be seen as a material consideration in some circumstances. It's actually quite a grey area in terms of actually how much weight you give that. And I know it is common, but jobs, economic development, it is a consideration, but in each case the weight you give it varies, Chair. I think, and this is just my take at the moment, in terms of the housing direction of housing, it's maybe a little bit too early to see where that market's going at the moment. That I may have a better steer about that once we come through the phases of lockdown, and you can then see how the housing market reacts to that. So I would maybe recommend a little bit of caution about making judgments based on what we think might happen to the housing market just at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Any other points? Okay, can we agree to note that paper? Do we want to let Peter back in? Can somebody confirm that they've let Peter back in, please?
I've sent the invite, Chair. If hopefully we won't see him shortly, and he's calling in. Peter. Yes, for the record, Councillor Smale's back in the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, 5.2 is proposed residential development and associated landscape and infrastructure at land at Stubbs Farm, Ladybury, Gorbridge. Anybody want to comment? Catherine Johnson.
Thank you. More or less the same as the last one. I was just concerned that it's not been allocated as housing land. It's still identified as agricultural land, and the education requirements have not been taken into control, and there's issues about road traffic management. Also, that aside from all that, Gorbridge is growing exponentially over the last few years, and it's some things I've got a lot of catching up, and I just thought it was extremely premature to be having this one, especially when there's other land identified for house building that's not been started.
Okay, thanks, Kath. Jim, Muirhead.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I've got a few comments to make on this particular application. One thing in the paperwork, it indicates that Gorbridge Community Council have been notified of this planning application, but on pre-application. But on checking the boundary of the community councils, at least half of this site is actually in Moorfoot Community Council. Now, I was actually contacted. I'm not declaring an interest as such, because all I got was an email asking about the pre-application consultation, to which I did check and reply from Moorfoot Community Council. So I know that they are aware of the issue, but the paper suggests that the information was only sent to Gorbridge Community Council, and I've got a wee concern that that may be an issue. So I'd like some information on that. I agree with Councillor Johnson's comments about this. The only way that, according to the paperwork, that we could actually consider this application was to suggest that there was an adequate housing supply in the area, and that clearly isn't the case. That's indicated in the document. Gorbridge is already the fastest growing. I mean, Midlothian is the fastest growing area of Scotland by a factor of 2. Gorbridge is the fastest growing area in Midlothian by a considerable amount as well. I think we're talking about, by the time that the existing development plan, or the houses in the existing development plan are built, we're talking about 70% increase in the housing within the Gorbridge area. So I think there's adequate housing supply here already. Therefore, I think it's doubtful that there's a need for that additional housing. There's also issues that are highlighted in the report regarding the visual impact on the site. From quite a bit, the area lower down, that whole hillside is visible. So there are issues, I think, with that particular problem as well. So I think the developers, I think it'd be helpful for the developers to have that kind of feedback, and hope they'll take that on board. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. John Hackett.
Thanks, Derek. I just wish to feed in concerns that have been raised with me from residents in the Tynewater area. With the increasing development in Gore Bridge, they're saying an increase in traffic along the A68, and any development that sits outside the existing plan will obviously have further impact on that. The other point I would make is a question, and it's generic, but I'll use this application as a basis. If we're looking at a development like this, and we take, if you like, the council takes the standard developer contributions, what is within either the planning committee's power or the council's power to say, we need those development contributions like everyone else, but we would also require you to carry out major development on this road to, if you like, eliminate all the risks that, for example, are identified in this paper. Thank you.
Okay. Peter, do you want to comment on any of the comments or questions asked?
Yeah, yes. In the context of other recent applications decided at officer level, it's very difficult for us to agree a fresh burden to the school system, where, if anything, we're going to need more schools, more school space, more teachers. Where this development sheltered housing for the elderly, there might be less of concern about the school issue and less of concern about the road issue. One thing that I think is missing on the pro side is this development is within walking distance of a railway station on the Borders railway line. So it's actually quite odd to be having to decline it. I absolutely agree with you, John, that the Lady Road, I must have burnt my clutch out on this road trying to get up it and down it over the last 25 years. So if there's to be any development at any point, then the road question, I think, is right at the top of my agenda. It seems very difficult for us to agree any windfall situations at the moment because of the schools problem. I wonder if Peter could comment on that.
Okay, I'll just remind members this is a pre-application consultation. It's not an actual application. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Just pick up on some of those issues. I'll just take them in order. If I go back to Councillor Muirhead's point about Moorfoot Community Council, I'll take that away and we can contact Moorfoot Community Council, make sure they do have an opportunity to feed into this process. So I'll take that away. The second point raised by Councillor Hackett in relation to developer contributions, in particular in relation to the road. Yeah, if development at some point was going to come forward on this site, then it is reasonable to look at what infrastructure requirements are required to make that development acceptable. And that can be enhancement to road infrastructure, in particular that road infrastructure which is required for an access. So that would be integral to any development on this site. If I jump forward again to Councillor Smell's point, I mean, it's just worth bearing in mind this site isn't identified in the local development plan for housing, and there's reasons for that. When the council goes through its site selection process, it is looking at sustainable locations, traffic infrastructure, topography, requirement, need, education. So it is weighing up all those components to reach a judgment. And it's obviously identified in the past that this site is maybe not appropriate for housing at this point. But I just want to be clear, this is different to windfall sites. Windfall sites are often within already established residential areas or development areas, and it's just land that has become available for development which previously wasn't considered to be available. But this site is separate to that. This site is like I say, it's not allocated. It's out with the settlement boundary of Gorebridge.
Okay. Can I just pause there? This just told me an unknown participant was joining. Can the person identify themselves?
I got a phone call and I've just answered it, so I presume it's me.
Thanks, Diane.
I can't get in through my computer.
Okay, Diane, thank you. Diane, we're currently at item 5.2, which is a proposed residential development at Ladybury Gorebridge. I'm not sure if you have any comments on that.
Not at the moment. Just trying to catch up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now move on. Is there any other?
Just one question. How do I know? How do I put my hand up?
You're just going to have to shout, Diane.
Okay. Cheers.
We'll just so it's the best I can do at the moment, folks. Okay, if everybody else is happy, the comments made there will be fed back to the applicant by our planners and actions taken. Happy to now move on to item 5.3, which is an application for permission considered for the first time. Catherine?
I wanted to ask, can we vote against this just now?
As far as I'm aware, Kath, it's a pre-application, it's for comment only. Peter, can you just clarify?
That's correct, Chair. It's just for comment at this stage, but those comments which were raised, which were negative, for want of a better phrase, then I would feed that back to the applicants anyway, the concerns that have been raised. So we feed that back. But yeah, it's not for a vote or a decision at this point, it's just for comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're happy now to move on to 5.3, which is applications considered for the first time. 5.3 is section 42 application to amend condition 2, a landscaping planning permission for the formation of a train cleaning and stabling depot and associated works at Miller Hill. Do any members have any comments or questions? The recommendation is to grant consent with conditions.
Sorry, it's Diane here.
Hi, Diane.
My only concern is about the drainage. SEPA say that as long as they keep it the way it is, then it's okay. I just wonder if any conditions can be put on that to make sure that nothing is done that SEPA wouldn't agree to.
Peter, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this application is looking to simply amend a landscape strip along one of the boundaries of the site. It doesn't detrimentally impact on the drainage system, so the drainage system is not disadvantaged by this. The previous conditions required a 3-metre wide hedge along the eastern boundary, but because of the operations of the railway, they can't deliver a 3-metre hedge along the whole boundary, so they're looking to deliver a hedge and tree planting between 2.4 metres and 4 metres. So there's not actually really a loss here. It's just having flexibility in the width of the planting, but that should not detrimentally impact on the drainage.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Are there any other issues? Unless members indicate otherwise, we'll take it that members are happy to grant consent with conditions. Okay, thank you. Now move on to item 5.4, section 4 application, 42 application to amend conditions 3, 4, 5, 6 and 10 imposed in the granted condition for the demolition of existing dwelling houses, erecting a hotel, residential development, formation of an access road, car parking and associated works at Calderstones, Bigger Road, Hill End, Dam Head. Application is recommended for granted consent with conditions. Any members wish to comment or argue otherwise? John Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. I should have probably asked this at the last one. Peter, I recall you some time ago raising with us the increase in section 42 applications, and I note that this is the second one this meeting. Again, in general terms, is this anything that we should be alerted to as a committee in the general sense? And my apologies for using this paper to ask that question.
Chair, if I can come in. Yeah, I mean, it is on the increase. It's nothing to be concerned about. It's just a mechanism which applicants can amend a previous grant of planning permission. They're using it more and more because, if I'm perfectly honest with you, it's cheaper than it is to submit a full new planning application. But in terms of land use planning, scrutiny, what happens on the ground, it's acceptable, it doesn't make any difference, and it still gets the same assessment level. So it's nothing to be worried about.
Okay, thanks for that, Peter. Okay, if there is nobody otherwise minded, we're happy to grant consent with conditions. Okay, thank you all. We now move on to application 5.5, which is an application for planning permission for the erection of 12 flatted dwellings, formation of an access road and car parking at associated works at land at Windsor Square, Penicuik. Debbie.
Thank you, convener. I called this application in, given concerns that I have about particular aspects of this plan. The drainage in particular is one. I asked if we could have a site visit, and these are not possible at the moment for obvious reasons. I do feel that members would absolutely have benefited from a site visit. This is not going to be the only application that we have that we don't have site visits for, and the local review body as well. So what I would propose is to postpone making a decision on this paper until such times as we can arrange something else. Now, my suggestion to the officers would be some sort of drone system. This is what's used in Fife, and I think that would be an adequate replacement. I believe that it's quite a cheap thing to do. It'd probably be cheaper than sticking 18 councillors in a minibus and driving them around Midlothian. Quite how that would work, you know, I don't know, but that would be that's my concerns about this paper, that we haven't had a chance to visit the site, and I really do think that members would benefit from a site visit.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, you're 100% right. It's something we are going to have to figure out how we're going to do, because at the moment the local review body requires a site visit to every site prior to it being discussed. And I have seen the drones working in, I think, Glasgow and in Dunfermline. So it's maybe something we need to take away. Are members happy to continue this until such times as the next meeting to see what solutions we can get when people want a site visit? Jim?
Yeah, Chair, I'm just a bit concerned. We've no idea how long this is going to go on for. Are we actually saying that if somebody asks for a site visit, that effectively just puts that any planning application, not just this one, it just puts them on hold indefinitely until we can get back to having a site visits or some alternative? No,
I would suspect that we'll either have to go back to having site visits or have an alternative quite quickly. So I would suspect in real terms it's going to be either a drone or somebody beaming in live online, so that you can actually point out what you want or what you would normally see if you were visiting. Anyhow, sorry, I've got a pile of hands up and I didn't care in what order they came up. So I'll go to Colin Cassidy next.
I think you just answered my question, Derek, or my point about we have to find a solution sooner rather than later. But I'd wholeheartedly agree that we do put this aside until we do have because I'd like to see this site in one way or another. And I think that we do need to be aware that there will be applications flooding in that we do need to do our visits to or see what the lay of the land is.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. Colin, sorry. Peter Smale.
Yeah, I mean, our practice has been at the planning committee that we can come to a decision without a site visit. Obviously, the review body is different. However, I think if we are going to carry this forward, we have to be consistent with everything we're doing at this meeting, so that if there's any question or any doubt about a decision, we would have to have the entire agenda put forward to a subsequent meeting, so that every property would have a drone show. Otherwise, we're in inconsistent decision mode.
Okay, I think we need the video and or the site visits if somebody requests that. Cass?
What implications does this have on the reporter if it's sent to the reporter? Can someone explain that to me, please?
Okay, as far as I'm aware, that if we continue this, it would be up to the applicant to appeal to the Scottish ministers. Peter, am I wrong or right in that? Peter Arnsdorf?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just try and clarify the appeal situation, which, if I start with the easy bit, which I don't think it applies in this situation, so you don't need to worry about appeals, but you get a statutory time period to determine a planning application. If you don't determine it within that time frame, the applicant has a period of 3 months thereafter to appeal against non-determination. If they don't appeal within that time slot, then they lose that right of appeal against non-determination. What's happened in this case, because of the COVID situation, that 3-month period has run out effectively. So the applicant here has missed their opportunity to appeal against non-determination. So that isn't a risk in this situation.
Okay, Peter, I'm not sure if that will be the case as to whether the ministers might just look at this and think that under these circumstances that they might take special or give some consents to extend appeal times and stuff like that. And so I'm not 100% certain that you're right with that. Okay, John Hackett.
Thank you, Derek. I'm mindful of Councillor McCall's concerns about drainage, and if I think of some of the developments in my own area, like in Mayfield, at the bottom of hills, as it were, and I do get a lot of complaints from people about neighbouring developments and the impact on their property. Is there anything in particular about this application that would be that far different to what we see elsewhere in Midlothian in terms of the drainage issues?
Chair. Sorry.
Yeah, Peter, on you go.
Chair, yeah, I'm just picking up on that. In terms of the drainage, this site's, for want of a better phrase, relatively standard in terms that it's a windfall site in a built-up area which has drainage connections running underneath the ground. Any redevelopment of that site would involve looking at that drainage and realigning the drainage, and the applicant's already looked into that and spoke to Scottish Water and spoke about capacity. So there is capacity, but it does involve moving some of the drainage pipes around underground. That effectively, in normal practice, is picked up as part of the building warrant process, which follows the planning process. So the council and the applicant would get into that detail, but that's quite common practice.
Okay, Joe Wallace.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Councillor McCall is proposing that to move ahead, we start using drones. I would second her motion if this is going to be move things forward for us so we can get things going. Instead of having this discussion at the next planning meeting, get the drone onto this site so that we can see it.
Debbie, can I clarify, you are moving a continuation?
I am.
And Joe, you're seconding that, and that could be by a drone or some other method of us being able to see that has to be agreed.
Yeah,
okay,
I mean, I think that's the thing, convener, that we are moving, you know, we are living in different times, and for anybody as well that perhaps is shielding and can't leave their property, and we have one of those amongst our number, you know, how are they supposed to do a site visit? So we have to get used to a new normal. You know, what we did before is no longer an option. We have to look at other solutions, and we need to look at them fast. So therefore, I'm not saying let's just stick it on the back burner and leave it for, you know, 3 years or whatever, but I do think it's important. I think Windsor Square is quite different, and it is very, very built up. And I think I'll go back to what I originally said. I think all councillors will benefit from a site visit.
Okay. Kelly Parry.
Thanks, Eric. I actually just wanted to ask Peter if they've thought about this issue in general, irrespective of this particular planning issue. I think Councillor McCall's right. We are living in a new normal, and I think that this particular issue has highlighted the need for some further work for planning. And I think in Fife, they've not just adopted this because of this pandemic. They've been using this for quite a long period of time. And I think other councils were already looking at it. And I think sometimes the geography of Midlothian makes site visits difficult. So I just wanted to try and get a general scope out from Peter. My understanding is that we just kind of need a kind of average style drone. It doesn't have to be hugely expensive. And somebody within the council would have to hold a drone licence, not necessarily from the planning department. So it'd be good to see this progressed as a side issue, irrespective of this particular planning issue.
Yeah, might be helpful if we get somebody from Dunfermline to come through and just do the first one with us. Peter Arnsdorf, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, my understanding at the moment, I don't think the council owns a drone, so yeah, we'd have to look into purchasing one, and as commented, how to use it and operate it, and other councils seem like they're doing it, so Midlothian should be able to do it, so I don't see that a problem. Just as a bit of thought, I know I've heard of another council where they've undertaken a site visit where they've had a situation where an officer has maybe been on site, and then elected members, rather than arriving on site in a group to look at it, they've arrived on a sort of 5 or 10 minute slots. So you've had this social distancing arrangement happening. So that's just another option to look at. But we'll obviously have to just take this away and work out what's the best solution for Midlothian.
Yes, thanks, Peter. Right, I've got enough of a pile of hands up, so if you're not wanting to speak, could you put your hands down, please? Stephen Curran.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just I think we're living in extraordinary times, and we should follow process as much as practically possible. And I think the drone seems a relatively inexpensive and sensible solution that could actually be brought forward quite quickly.
Thank you. Jam.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't realise my hand was up.
Okay, right. We have a motion from Debbie, seconded by Joe, to continue this. The recommendations are to grant consent with conditions. Is there any motion to follow the recommendations, or are members happy to go along with what has been proposed? Okay, I'm going to suggest members seem to be happy with the continuation. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Okay, with that, if we can record that Debbie's motion, seconded by Joe, is a successful motion, and that we will arrange Sahan as quickly as we can. Thank you. There's no other business, and the date of the next meeting is still to be arranged. Could I thank everybody for their attendance, and hopefully these things become easier as we move on. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye now.
Bye. Thanks, Chair.